My alpha best friend hates omegas, so I fake being beta. Now I'm pregnant after helping him in rut. The training grounds smelled like crushed grass, sweat, and dominance, since Eli had spent his entire life avoiding. He stood in the sparring ring, shoulders relaxed, movements calculated, breathing steady. To everyone watching, he was the perfect example of a quiet, unobtrusive beta. Only he knew the truth. Under the herbal suppressants, the layered neutralizing sprays, the calculated control of his breathing, Eli was an omega. And not just any omega. One whose scent was dangerously compatible with the strongest alpha in the pack. His best friend, Rhett. Rhett towered over the others, muscles coiled, eyes sharp, presence commanding without effort. Alphas followed him, betas respected him, and omegas avoided him. Because Rhett didn't just dislike them, he despised them. Omegas cling. They manipulate. They pretend to be weak so they can control you, he had once scoffed, loud enough for the whole pack to hear. Eli laughed along that day, pretending to agree, pretending his heart didn't crumple inside his chest. If Rhett knew what Eli was, he'd have left him behind years ago. So Eli stayed beta. Even if it meant hiding every part of himself. Even if it meant enduring the ache of loving someone who would never love an omega. A shift in the air. Training was nearly over when Eli sensed it. A shift, subtle at first. Rhett's breathing deepened. His stance grew tense. His pupils dilated, swallowing the warm hazel into something feral. A ripple of unease passed through the pack. Alphas sensed competition. Betas sensed danger. Omegas fled. Eli froze. Rhett shouldn't be entering rut, not for another 2 months. But the signs were unmistakable. His scent, usually crisp and dominant, thickened into something molten and territorial. A nearby beta whispered, "We need to get him isolated before instinct hits." But Rhett didn't look at them. He looked at Eli. Only Eli. "Don't." Rhett growled when 2 sentries approached. His voice was rough, cracking at the edges. "Don't touch me." His gaze locked onto Eli with an intensity that made Eli's knees weaken, not from desire, but instinct. Omega instinct. He swallowed it down, forcing neutrality into every breath. A commander stepped forward cautiously. "Rhett, you need to go. Now." Rhett's chest heaved. Sweat rolled down his temple. His hand twitched like he was fighting the urge to reach for Eli. Eli stepped back, heart pounding. If Rhett got any closer, the suppressants wouldn't be enough. If Rhett scented him, truly scented him, everything would be over. The choice. Rhett staggered, grabbing Eli's wrist before anyone could intervene. His grip was burning hot, trembling with instinct. "Stay," he breathed, voice cracking. I need you nearby." The pack froze. Why Eli? Why the beta? Eli forced a steady expression, even as panic roared through him. "Rhett, you're not yourself," he whispered. "Let them help you." Rhett shook his head, pressing his forehead against Eli's shoulder, something he had never done before. His scent washed over Eli like heat licking up his spine. Eli almost reacted, almost responded the way an omega would. But he didn't. He couldn't. He gently guided Rhett back, helping the guards lead him toward the isolation wing. Rhett's fingers slipped away slowly, reluctantly, like his body was fighting the separation. Just before the doors closed, Rhett's gaze locked onto Eli one last time, raw, desperate, feral. "Don't leave me," he rasped. Eli stood frozen long after the doors sealed shut. Because the truth was a knife inside him. He wasn't afraid of Rhett discovering he was an omega. He was afraid of what might happen if Rhett didn't. The isolation wing was silent, but not the peaceful kind. The kind that trembled with barely contained instinct. Eli stood outside the reinforced door, palms sweaty, heart racing. He could hear muffled movement inside, heavy breaths, the low rumble of an alpha fighting his own body. Rhett's rut had come early. Violent. Unstable. The pack medic approached Eli, eyes wary. "He keeps calling for you," she whispered. "He won't let anyone near him." He nearly broke Mason's arm trying to get out. Eli's stomach twisted. Of course Rhett would. Of course his instincts would reach for the one person who had always been close. The one he believed was safe, neutral, beta. But Eli wasn't safe. Not for Rhett. Not for himself. "He needs an anchor," the medic continued. "Someone familiar. Someone he trusts." Eli knew what she was asking without hearing it aloud. "No," he said quickly, shaking his head. "I can't, he's dangerous right now." A howl, raw, strained, aching, echoed through the wing. Eli froze. That sound wasn't anger. It wasn't aggression. It was fear. A voice, hoarse cracking, followed it. "Eli, please? The medic flinched. If he keeps fighting the rut, it could damage his body. His mind. Eli's breath stuttered. If Rhett got hurt, because of him? Because he refused. He'd never forgive himself. Suppressants or not, scent control or not. Eli stepped forward. I'll go in, he said quietly. Just for a moment. But they both knew it would never be just a moment. Inside the room. The door sealed shut behind him. Heat slammed into Eli like a physical force. Thick, humid, pulsing with alpha pheromones. His body reacted instinctively, omega instincts clawing at the surface. He forced them down. He couldn't slip. Not now. Rhett was on the floor, chest heaving, shirt clinging to him with sweat. His eyes lifted, wild at first, then softening the moment he recognized Eli. You came, Rhett whispered, voice ragged. Eli crouched beside him, keeping space between them. I'm here but just to help you breathe. You need to stay calm. But Rhett surged closer, burying his face against Eli's neck before he could react. Eli stiffened. His scent glands burned beneath the skin, instincts begging to release, to answer, to submit. He held himself together by sheer will. Rhett inhaled deeply, and relaxed, muscles unwinding, breath slowing. You make it stop, Rhett murmured, voice slurred with instinct. Only you. Eli swallowed hard. It's because we grew up together. Your body associates me with safety, that's all. But he knew that wasn't why. He knew exactly why. Their compatibility wasn't an accident. Rhett's fingers curled into Eli's shirt. Don't leave, he breathed. Everyone else smells wrong. Eli hesitated, then eased an arm around him, letting Rhett lean against him. Minutes blurred. Hours softened. Rhett's trembling eased, his breathing steadied, his head resting against Eli's lap like a sleeping wolf. Eli stroked his hair, slow, soothing, gentle, because no one else would ever see Rhett like this. Soft, vulnerable, human. And it hurt, because this was the closest Eli would ever be allowed to love him. The moment that changed everything. Just before dawn, Rhett shifted, nuzzling closer, lips grazing Eli's collarbone as he murmured, Mine? Eli's heart stopped. He knew it was instinct. He knew it wasn't real. But for a single suspended second, he wished it was. Rhett's breathing deepened into real sleep, finally freed from the worst of the rut. Eli gently eased himself away. He stood, legs shaking, emotions raw. At the door he paused, looking back one last time. Rhett looked peaceful. Safe. Unaware of what had happened or what it meant. Eli whispered to the sleeping Alpha. You'll never know. You can't ever know. Then he slipped out before Rhett woke, sealing the door behind him like sealing away a dream he could never keep. The morning after the rut night should have felt like relief. But Eli woke with a tightness in his chest and a heaviness in his stomach that wouldn't ease. He splashed cold water on his face, gripping the sink, breathing through the rising panic. His scent suppressants should have been working. His hormones should have been stable. His body should have been normal. But nothing felt normal. His reflection stared back at him, pale, shaken, eyes too bright. He whispered to himself. It was just instinct. It didn't mean anything. It couldn't have consequences. But his hands trembled. Whispers in the pack. By midday the whispers began. A beta near the hall sniffed the air and frowned. An omega passing by paused, confused. An alpha trainee's head snapped toward Eli with narrowed eyes. Someone muttered, Do you smell that? Like an omega but faint. Eli's heart hammered. He tightened his scent collar. He reapplied suppressants. He forced his breath shallow. But it didn't stop the dizziness. It didn't stop the rolling nausea. It didn't stop the warmth blooming low in his abdomen. Rhett found him in the corridor. His presence filled the space instantly, towering, intense, too perceptive. You've been avoiding me, Rhett said. Eli forced a tired smile. You needed rest. And training schedules shifted. It's nothing. But Rhett stepped closer, eyes narrowing. You smell different. Eli froze. Time stopped. Rhett's brows pulled together, confused, almost unsettled. Did someone else's scent get on you? He asked, voice low, tinged with something territorial. Eli shook his head too quickly. No. I'm fine. Just tired. Rhett didn't look convinced. And the worst part. Eli wasn't sure he looked like he believed himself either. The collapse. During sparring practice, Eli's vision blurred. His knees buckled. The room tilted sideways. Someone shouted. Eli barely heard it through the ringing in his ears. Strong hands caught him before he hit the ground. Rhett. Eli. Hey, look at me. Eli tried, but the world kept slipping. Rhett snarled at the others. Back up. Give him space. His voice wasn't angry, It was terrified. Eli was carried, lifted effortlessly, cradled against a chest he knew too well. To the medical den. He tried to protest, but he couldn't form words. The truth he didn't want. When Eli woke, the medic was there, face pale, lips pressed tight. "We ran scans," she said softly. "There's something you need to know." Eli already knew. His body already knew. His instincts already knew. But hearing it broke him anyway. "You're pregnant." The world didn't spin this time. It stopped. Frozen. Silent. Irreversible. The medic lowered her voice further. "And Eli, it's an alpha-paired conception. Strong bond signatures. Only one alpha matches it." Eli's breath caught. Rhett. Of course it was Rhett. The night in the isolation wing. The closeness, the instinct, the claiming murmured half asleep. His body had responded even if he hadn't meant it to. Male Omega pregnancies were rare. Sacred. Protected. Regulated. And absolutely impossible to hide. Eli's throat tightened painfully. "No one can know," he whispered. "Not yet. Please." The medic hesitated, then nodded. But even she couldn't protect him from the next truth. "Your scent will break through the suppressants soon. You only have days." Days before the pack scented the truth. Before Rhett scented it. Before everything shattered. The confrontation. That evening, as Eli tried to slip away unseen, Rhett appeared, blocking the doorway, eyes dark with concern and something sharper. "You're pale. You're shaking. You won't look at me." His voice softened. "What's going on?" Eli tried to step around him. Rhett caught his wrist, not harshly but firmly enough that Eli felt the heat of his touch all the way to his chest. "Why do I feel like you're slipping away from me?" Rhett asked, voice quieter, almost broken. Eli swallowed, fighting the sting in his eyes. "Because I'm pregnant with your child. Because I'm an Omega. Because everything you hate is everything I am." Instead, he whispered, "I just need space. That's all." Rhett held his gaze for a long, searching moment. Then he let go. But as Eli walked away, he felt Rhett's eyes on his back, heavy, suspicious, unsettled. And he knew. The secret wasn't going to stay hidden much longer. The next morning, Eli woke with a sharp pulse of nausea and a wave of heat beneath his skin. Not fever, not illness. His scent suppressants had finally failed. No amount of spray, pills, or practiced breath control could hide it anymore. A soft Omega scent, warm, subtle, unmistakable, clung to the air around him like a confession. He wrapped himself in layered clothing, tightened his collar, tried to steady his heartbeat. But panic made it race faster. He shouldn't go to training. He shouldn't leave his room. He shouldn't risk being near Rhett. But absence would draw attention too. And attention was the one thing he couldn't survive. So he walked to the training grounds anyway, praying no one would notice. The first eyes turn. It happened quickly. A Gamma patrol paused mid-step, nose lifting. A young Omega blinked, startled, looking around in confusion. Two Alphas stiffened, eyes narrowing, instincts reacting before their minds caught up. Someone whispered, "Who's in heat?" Someone else answered, "No, it's not heat. It's concealed Omega scent." Then, silence. Every head turned toward Eli. His stomach dropped. He tried to step back. But his knees buckled instead. The collapse again. The world swayed and Eli felt himself falling. But strong arms caught him before he hit the ground. Rhett's arms. Again. "Eli." Rhett's voice shook, raw, frantic. "What's happening to you?" Eli tried to pull away, but Rhett held him easily, lifting him to his feet. And that was the moment. The moment Eli felt it. Rhett inhaled. Just one breath. One instinctive, unconscious inhale against Eli's skin. And his expression shattered. Confusion. Realization. Betrayal. "You," he breathed, stepping back like he'd been burned. "You're Omega?" Gasps rippled through the pack. Eli's throat closed, words trapped behind shame and fear. Rhett's voice rose, hoarse, disbelieving. "All this time? You lied to me? You let me during the rut, while you—" He couldn't finish. Couldn't say pregnant. Couldn't say mine. Couldn't face what it meant. Around them, Alphas bristled, scenting the air. Betas stared, stunned. Omegas whispered behind trembling hands. Someone murmured, "The Alpha's best friend, an Omega all along." Another. Was he trying to trap him? And that cut deeper than any blade. Eli forced himself to speak, voice shaking. "I wasn't manipulating anyone. I hid because I had to. Because you." His voice cracked. "You hate Omegas." Rhett flinched. Not because the words were harsh, but because they were true. The breaking point. Eli stepped back, swallowing the pain twisting in his chest. I never wanted you to find out like this. I never wanted you to feel trapped or cornered. Rhett's jaw tightened, eyes storming with emotion he couldn't name. You lied to me, he said, quiet, wounded. All these years, you pretended to be something you weren't. Eli's voice softened, barely a whisper. If I told you the truth, I would have lost you. The training hall fell silent. Rhett looked at him, really looked, like he was seeing a stranger and a memory at once. Then he turned away. Not with anger. With devastation. And walked out. Eli stood alone as the pack watched, judging, whispering, calculating. His secret was out. His scent was exposed. And his pregnancy would soon follow. He didn't wait for the questions, the accusations, the formal investigation. He packed his things before sunset. And by nightfall, Eli was gone. Not because he wanted to leave Rhett, but because staying meant destroying them both. Eli expected leaving to feel freeing. Expected the cold night air to calm him. Expected distance to dull the ache in his chest. But every step away from the pack grounds felt like tearing something out of himself. Something instinctive, biological, ancient. He pressed a hand to his abdomen, breath trembling. You'll be safer if no one knows, he whispered, to himself, to the tiny life inside him, to the bond he was trying to break before it formed. But bonds didn't care about logic. Especially not Alpha Omega ones. The pack in turmoil. Back at the pack house, chaos erupted. Voices rose. Arguments sparked. Rumors multiplied like wildfire. But one sound cut through all of it. Rhett's roar. It shook the walls, rattled windows, sent Omegas hiding and Betas freezing in place. His scent blasted through the halls, sharp, furious, terrified. Where is he? Rhett demanded, grabbing a patrol officer by the collar. He left, the Beta stammered. Packed his things. He's already passed the territory border. Rhett didn't wait for more. His instincts surged, feral, ancient, undeniable. Because the truth had hit him like a punch to the ribs. His Omega was gone. Not just a friend. Not just someone familiar. Not just someone he trusted. An instinct didn't care about pride, fear, or past opinions. It only cared about one thing. Find. Protect. Claim. The hunt. Eli was halfway down the moonlit forest path when he heard it. Branches snapping. Footsteps pounding. A scent flooding the air behind him. Rhett. Eli's heart lurched. He quickened his pace, but he was pregnant, exhausted, and barely holding himself upright. Rhett caught him easily, hand wrapping around his arm, spinning him gently but firmly to face him. Why did you leave? Rhett demanded, voice raw, breath uneven. Not angry, hurt. Eli couldn't look at him. You shouldn't be near me. Rhett stepped closer. What? Because you're Omega? His voice broke. Because I was too blind to see it? Too stupid to notice? Eli shook his head, eyes burning. You hate Omegas, Rhett. You've always said so. Rhett's throat tightened. I hated the idea of being controlled by instincts. Of losing myself. Of needing someone. His eyes softened, pained, exposed. And you were the one person I couldn't afford to need. Eli's breath caught. But before he could respond, Rhett inhaled, deep, instinctive, and froze. Then his eyes widened. His voice dropped to a whisper, shaken, reverent, terrified. You're pregnant. The shift. Eli's hands curled protectively over his abdomen. Rhett stepped back as if the realization physically hit him. During the rut, did I hurt you? Did I force you? Eli, tell me. Eli shook his head fiercely. No. You didn't force anything. It wasn't like that. Rhett's shoulders sagged with relief, then squared with something stronger. Resolve. Instinct. Claim. He dropped to his knees in front of Eli, head bowed, hands trembling at his sides, not touching, waiting for permission. I would never abandon you, Rhett said, voice shaking. I would never abandon our pup. Eli's breath faltered. Our. The word lodged in his chest, warm and terrifying. Rhett looked up at him, eyes shining, not with alpha dominance, but fear. Fear of losing him. Fear of being rejected. Fear of being too late. Let me protect you, Rhett whispered. Not because instinct demands it, but because I can't breathe knowing you're out here alone. Eli's vision blurred with tears he'd been holding back for years. Rhett rose slowly, carefully, as if approaching something sacred. He wrapped his arms around Eli, not tight, not possessive, just enough to hold him steady. For the first time, Eli leaned into him. Because this wasn't the Rhett who mocked Omegas. This wasn't the Rhett who ran from vulnerability. This was the Rhett who was finally realizing the truth. He didn't hate Omegas. He feared loving one. The walk back to the pack grounds was slow. Not because the distance was far, but because everything between them had changed. Rhett stayed beside Eli the entire way, close enough to shield him, far enough not to overwhelm him. Every rustle in the forest made Rhett tense. Every shift of wind had him scenting the air. Every uneven breath from Eli made him glance over in worry. It should have felt suffocating. Instead, it felt safe. For the first time since discovering the pregnancy, Eli's body relaxed. His shoulders loosened, his heartbeat steadied, and the nausea eased. Because Omegas weren't meant to be alone. Especially not pregnant ones. And Rhett, whether he understood it or not, was already acting like a mate. The council summons. News traveled fast. By the time they returned, the pack council was waiting, stern faces, crossed arms, tension thick enough to choke on. An elder stepped forward. Rhett. Step away from the Omega. The phrasing sent a ripple of outrage through Rhett's scent. His jaw clenched. He has a name, Rhett said coldly. Say it. The elder hesitated. Eli. Barely respectful. Another elder added. We detected strong alpha pairing markers. The pregnancy must be confirmed. Then the matter of guardianship. Rhett cut him off with a low growl. There is no matter. I am the father. Whispers exploded across the hall. Eli's pulse spiked, fear, shame, exposure. An Omega pregnancy without a public bond was scandal enough. But with the pack's strongest alpha? The council leader raised a hand. Rhett, your judgment is compromised. Instinct is clouding. Rhett stepped forward, voice sharp as steel. My judgment has never been clearer. Then, something no one expected. Rhett reached back and took Eli's hand. Not possessively. Not as dominance. But as a promise. Eli's breath caught as warmth spread through his chest. A warmth that wasn't fear for the first time. The heartbeat. The medic ushered them into the examination room. Eli lay back, trembling, not from pain but from the weight of everything. Rhett stood beside him, tense, hands clenched like he was preparing for battle. Then the sound. Soft. Rapid. Fluttering like tiny wings. The pup's heartbeat. Eli gasped. Rhett's eyes widened, glossing with stunned emotion. That's ours? Rhett whispered. Eli nodded, tears slipping free. Rhett sank into the chair beside him, elbows on his knees, hands covering his mouth. His shoulders shook, not with fear but awe. I didn't know, he whispered. I never understood why people talk about fate or bonds or family. I thought it was weakness. He lifted his head, eyes raw, stripped bare. But this, he looked at Eli, voice breaking, this feels like the strongest thing I've ever touched. Eli's heart twisted. Because he had waited years. Silent, hidden, pretending. And now Rhett was seeing him. Not as a beta. Not as a lie. Not as a burden. But as someone he wanted beside him. The choice. After the exam, the council demanded an answer. Rhett, the leader said, instinct can force attachment. You may declare a temporary bond until the birth, and dissolve it afterward. Rhett stared at them like they had spoken a language he'd never heard. Temporary? He repeated, voice dangerously soft. Eli held his breath. This was the moment. The fork in the path. The place where everything could break again. Rhett looked at Eli, really looked. Not at his scent. Not at his status. Not at his pregnancy. At him. Then Rhett turned back to the council and spoke with absolute certainty. I choose him. Not because of instinct. Not because of the pup. Not because I'm expected to. Pause. A breath. But because every day without him felt wrong, and I was too afraid to understand why. The room fell silent. Eli couldn't speak. Couldn't move. Could barely breathe. Rhett stepped closer, voice gentler now, just for him. You don't have to accept me, he said softly. But I'm not leaving you. Not again. Eli's hand shook as he reached out, and Rhett intertwined their fingers, steady and sure. For the first time. They were choosing each other. Not as Alpha and Omega. Not as secret and lie. But as something real. The pack house was silent when Eli awoke, too silent. For a moment he didn't know where he was. His vision swam, breath uneven, body weak and trembling. Then a sharp cramp rolled through his abdomen and he gasped, clutching the sheets. Warm hands were instantly on him. Easy breathe, Eli. I've got you. Rhett. Eli blinked up at him, confused. The last thing he remembered was collapsing outside the med ward, and voices, and fear. Now Rhett sat beside him, eyes bloodshot, jaw tight, looking like he hadn't slept in days. What happened? Eli whispered. Rhett swallowed hard, his voice thick. You passed out. The stress, the scent blockers, the pregnancy, your body hit its limit. The word pregnancy settled between them like thunder. Eli's throat tightened. You shouldn't be here. The pack. I don't care about the pack. Rhett snapped, not in anger but in fear. I only care about you. Eli froze. Rhett's hand trembled as he brushed Eli's hair back, his eyes burning with guilt. You lied because of me, he whispered. Because I made you believe being an Omega was something shameful. Because I made you think I'd throw you away. Eli looked away because it was true. Rhett's voice cracked. I'm the one who should be begging. The scent that changed everything. A sudden wave of pain tore through Eli, sharper this time, stealing his breath. He grabbed Rhett's arm, nails digging in. Rhett's pupils blew wide, instinct roaring to the surface. The medics rushed in. It's early, one warned. But the baby is coming. Eli's pulse spiked. No, it's too soon. Rhett cupped his face, forcing him to focus. Eli, look at me. You're not alone. I'm here. Another contraction hit, and Rhett's scent, warm, grounding, fiercely protective, washed over him, calming his panicked heartbeat. One of the betas hesitated. Alpha, if your scent stabilizes him this much, you should stay. Rhett growled softly. I'm not leaving. The breaking point. Hours blurred, pain, sweat, trembling breaths. Eli cried out, voice breaking. I can't, Rhett, I can't do this. Rhett pressed his forehead to his, desperate and gentle all at once. Yes, you can. You're the strongest person I've ever known. Stronger than me. Stronger than anyone. Eli sobbed, not from pain but from finally hearing what he'd always needed. Another push, another search. And then, a cry. Small. Sure. No. The room stilled. The medic lifted the tiny bundle, dark hair, tiny fists, lungs fierce enough for the whole world. A healthy Alpha-Omega hybrid, she announced. Rhett's breath shuddered. Eli stared, tears falling silently. Let me see him, he whispered. The baby was placed in his arms, and Eli felt something inside him settle, anchor, bloom. Then Rhett's hand covered his. Their child opened his eyes, hazel like Rhett's but soft like Eli's. Rhett's voice was barely audible. That's my family. The claim. When the medics left, the room dimmed to quiet again. Rhett turned to Eli. No fire, no dominance, just devotion. I don't want to hide. I don't want you to pretend. I want the world to know you're mine, and that I'm yours. Eli's heartbeat stuttered. You accept me as an Omega? Rhett shook his head. No. I cherish you as an Omega. Silence. Then Rhett leaned down, exposing his neck, offering, not demanding. A gesture no Alpha ever made lightly. Eli's breath caught. You're asking me to claim you? I'm asking you, Rhett said softly, to stay, to let me love you, to raise our pup together, to stop hiding, from me, from the pack, from yourself. Eli looked at the baby, then at Rhett, and something inside him finally exhaled. He pressed his forehead to Rhett's, voices barely a whisper. Yes. Rhett's relief shook through his whole body. He kissed Eli, not desperate like the rut, not accidental like that night but intentional. Chosen. The beginning, not the end. Outside the pack waited, confused, unsure, whispering. But when Rhett walked out with Eli in one arm and their newborn in the other, no one dared question. Because the strongest Alpha in the territory was no longer alone. Because the Omega beside him no longer hid. Because their scents intertwined, undeniable and whole. And because love, not instinct, led them forward. Eli looked up at Rhett, heart full. We rewrote fate, he murmured. Rhett smiled, a real one. No, he said, kissing the top of Eli's head. We finally stopped running from it,